welcome to the Fit and Healthy Today show. And today our subject matter is enlarged prostate, also known as BPH. I won't say the fancy word, it might twist my tongue here. What is it and what are the symptoms? Normally the prostate, which is about the size of a walnut, sits on the outlet of the urinary bladder and surrounds the urethra. 1/2 of all men that are 45 years old and above suffer from what is called BPH. So, what happens is as the prostate enlarges or grows, it kind of encircles and puts pressure on the urethra, causing a lot of discomfort for men, and they'll find themselves getting up 3 and 4 times a night, sometimes more. I've had customers come in that would get up every hour to every 2 hours, not ever getting the good REM sleep that they need. They get sometimes a burning pain. They just kind of feel like that the bladder never empties. And this can be a chronic issue. This can be caused by infection. 3 different types of things. We're going to have a chronic, temporary type of infection, and then acute forms, which kind of come and go depending on what your diet is, and we'll talk about that a little later on, because diet does affect the prostate and the swelling of the prostate, or the shrinking of the prostate as well. Usually it's detected by first symptoms, and then sometimes when the doctor does the prostate exam, he'll notice that the prostate is a little bit enlarged. Most of the time when this occurs, it's benign. You know, for safety reasons, sometimes doctors recommend biopsies if they particularly see a higher PSA content or higher PSA reading, which we now know actually doesn't have a whole lot to do with cancer. But the point being is the prostate swells, it's very uncomfortable, and when you're not getting sleep, it's burning, you're not emptying. This is problematic, but there's ways we can take care of it. The causes. We think because of the increased amount of what are called petrochemicals, pesticides, what are estrogen mimickers. We have much higher amounts of estrogens in our environment from fuel oils and all the other sources that we have. It tends to raise a man's what's called a xenoestrogen level, which blocks testosterone from being testosterone, and it'll get it to convert into something called estradiol or into something called dihydrotestosterone, DHT. These 2 things cause the prostate to enlarge and get hardened around the urethra. So the key is to keep a balance between estrogens, progesterones, and testosterone as best you can. And when you start to exhibit the symptoms, then doing some of the things that I'm going to recommend here a little bit as we proceed on. Nutritional deficiencies are the lack of zinc, selenium, basic B vitamins, adequate amounts of vitamin C, keeping adequate amounts of fruits and vegetables in the diet that help reduce inflammation are also another contributing cause. So if you've got the junk food junkie going to your, I could name all the fast food establishments, increasing inflammation and not getting adequate nutrition, obviously he's going to show earlier signs. I've had men come in at age 30, starting nowadays, which is unusual because we didn't used to see this till men were in their 40s and 50s, exhibiting the signs of enlarged prostate. Once again, due to the chemical exposures that we're seeing in the environment and poor nutrition, poor diet, cigarette smoking, alcohol consumption, all contributing to an inflammatory state in the body. The diet that we like to see when you're having this issue, as well as for prevention, we like to see a diet high in fiber. What fiber does is it binds to the estrogen metabolites, these estrogen mimickers and environmental estrogens, and it removes it out of the body. So 30 to 35 grams of fiber per day. What that means, translates to, is about 6 to 8 servings of organic fruits and vegetables a day. There's very few people that eat that much fiber. Now there are fiber supplements that you can do to help get rid of those estrogen metabolites, particularly things like apple pectin, grapefruit pectin, which bind to those estrogen metabolites. What's supposed to happen is when your body gets rid of those excessive types of hormones, estrogen, testosterone, all that type of those hormones, it's supposed to be excreted out of the body. The problem is if you're not eliminating 2 or 3 times a day, the body can reabsorb those hormones back in again. So diet high in fiber, Very, very necessary to remove those estrogen metabolites. Eating tomatoes, as long as you don't have arthritis. Tomatoes, organic, please. Once again, you spray a tomato full of chemical pesticides, it don't wash off. It's within the plant itself because it's growing from the time it's a tiny seed on up with chemicals. And so you want organic. It's rich in lycopene, which is a carotenoid that has been found in research to be very anti-prostate cancer, but it also helps feed and nourish the prostate. Pumpkin seeds, yummy, yummy. We used to munch on them all the time, especially the ones with salt. I'm talking about the raw pumpkin seeds. They're very rich in zinc, and they're rich in essential fatty acids that can reduce inflammation. So guys, if you like your handful of pumpkin seeds, excellent idea. Get the raw ones, preferably organic if you can. Fish and nuts also. At least once a week fish. We don't like to exceed more than once a week on fish because we have to worry about mercury and PCP exposure. But as I'll talk about in the supplements, there's other things that you can add in, such as fish oil that's mercury-free and PCP-free, that's molecularly distilled or very clean fish oils. That can reduce inflammation. Organic nuts reduce inflammation as well throughout the body, be it for arthritis or the prostate, which is a gland. Drinking green tea for detox. I know most people are like, what the heck does that have to do with prostate? Well, if you can drink green tea, well, besides it lengthening your life, and there's good Japanese studies to support that, it actually, for some reason, has a detoxification effect on the prostate. And research has shown that it also can help with decreasing that enlargement of the prostate as well. So drink your green tea for lots of reasons. I'm going to move on here to the foods that you should avoid. Now, most people are like, but that's my diet. You're taking my food. Avoiding saturated or hydrogenated fats. The French fry diet and the potato chips ain't what you're supposed to be doing. You need to be eating the good fats, as we discussed, with the nuts, the pumpkin seeds, the avocados, the fish. Those reduce inflammation. Saturated, heavy meat fats, heavy cheese fats, those types of things are very high in saturated fats, which actually increase inflammatory aspects. Avoiding sugar, which absolutely, you don't think of sugar as wreaking havoc on the hormones, but it does. You think of it, oh, it messes with my insulin and everything. Well, when you mess with insulin, you mess with a lot of other hormones. So sugar wreaks havoc on your hormones. So decreasing and eating a good whole grain, lots of vegetables in your diet is the best way. Drinking that 32-ounce of soda from the nearest convenience store is not what I mean. Avoid alcohol and caffeine. They're very irritating to the prostate, to the bladder, to the joints. Now, if you're going to have your 1 cup of coffee a day, I'm not too concerned. But if you're sitting there drinking your caffeine all the day, and you're here hitting the local coffee place a couple of times a day, you got an issue with having too much acid going into the body. And the more we acidify, the more inflammation that we'll have as well. All of the supplements that I have listed on here, and there's more that I could have listed, but I wanted to give you the basics on here, are all studied. So if you go to your doc and say, I'm doing 320 milligrams of standardized saw palmetto a day, and he says, oh, that doesn't do anything, he's wrong. It's medical journal studied, and we're talking multiple studies, found more effective than Flomax. So when he hands you that Flomax prescription, if you want to try something that was found to be more effective, that's natural with no side effects, you might want to consider saw palmetto extracts. And this is what the studies show. It decreased the enlargement and reduced the hormone production of 5-alpha reductase, which basically blocks DHT from converting into from binding into the prostate cells. It also reduces the effects of estrogen and progesterone, relaxing the smooth muscle tissues, that smooth fiber, or excuse me, the smooth tissues that are around the prostate, so it relaxes it. It eases up on the urethra. So if you're shrinking the prostate and you're easing up around the urethra, guess what? Your symptoms of BPH, they go away. And most of my customers comment usually within about 2 weeks they start seeing the results. Some of them will come in 1 week and said, hey, but you got to do the right type, a standardized extract in a good form. Hitting the local large shopping center looking for your saw palmetto berries isn't going to do it. You need a good saw palmetto extract from a company that has the right types of different components in it. And I could get into that, but I'm not going to. Pygium. Pygium, and you need to look for 13% sterol level. Studies support that it decreased nighttime urination as well as your urine flow. You had a much better flow. You felt like you were actually emptying the bladder. This combination, if I can't get saw palmetto to work by itself, we throw in a little bit of pygium on top of that. It works. It works. Swedish rye pollen extract. And she's like, what the heck is that? It's Swedish flower pollen. She's like, flower pollen for prostate? Yeah. It does have effects on reducing enlarged prostate as well, and most good health food stores have it. Nettle root lessens BPH symptoms. Nettle is also used for allergies and inflammation, so it's kind of interesting. You kind of can get two effects. It helps with the allergies, and it also reduces the BPH symptoms as well. Beta-sitosterol, 60 to 130 milligrams a day. It's kind of a hybrid of saw palmetto. I kind of like more the saw palmetto. I've seen better effects with it because it seems to have some additional components in it that the beta-sitosterol may lack, because there's other sterols found, plant sterols found in saw palmetto that you're not going to find in just plain beta-sitosterol. Zinc. Now, the studies on zinc for reducing BPH symptoms were 100 milligrams for the first 2 months, and then you reduce the dosage down to about 50 milligrams per day. And you're not going to find that in a multivitamin. You need to balance that with 2 or 3 milligrams of copper as well. Clinical studies also show that it also can reduce the risk of prostate cancer as well, too. Selenium, 100 to 200 micrograms a day. Now, we want a good amino acid organically bound selenium. Grabbing it again off of your major retail shelf is not the route you want to go. You want to look for the right type of selenium because it's a biologically active form. You don't want to do more than 200 micrograms total in one day, so you need to kind of go into somebody who can kind of make sure you're not overdoing it. A little bit of selenium goes a long way for reducing symptoms and is very anti-prostate cancer as well. Medical journal studied. Quercetin with vitamin C. Now, quercetin has studies on it that support that it stops the replication of prostate cancer cells. But quercetin in combination with vitamin C not only works on the allergies, it works on inflammatory issues in the prostate as well. About 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams of each of them twice a day would be recommended to help reduce. So if you've got allergies, swollen prostate, I'd hit in that a little bit of quercetin, vitamin C, and a little bit of bromelain on top of that. Essential fatty acids. Remember how I said, you want to, the government tells us not to eat more than 1 serving of fish per week because it's just got too many heavy metal chemicals in it because of what we were doing to our environment as far as chemical pesticides and all the wonderful pollutants that we're adding to our environment from fuel oils. Tablespoon of flax oil or about 3 of those good 1,000 milligram fish oils per day reduces inflammation in the prostate and in your joints and in your brain and your bowel and all the other places. So those essential fatty acids are very necessary for health. If you're vegetarian, flax oil is a good option. If you don't mind the fish, you can do the fish oil. A good multivitamin. Please go to a place that can tell you what the absorption rate is on their multivitamin. If you go over to the Lotus and you pull out your card, the big old warehouse, and you pull out that big old huge thing of vitamins for $11 and something, and I can pull my comparative guide out, and I can tell you that got a score of 3.5%. That means that ain't a very good vitamin. So you need to go to a good health food store, one preferably not on the stock market Standard & Poor's, preferably one that shows that's been ranked what its absorption is and what's in it that works. Get a good multiple vitamin to give you that zinc and the selenium and the B vitamins, which are very necessary as well for prostate health. DIM. We talked about estrogens from the environment causing an issue with DHT as well as estradiol conversion. Well, DIM is a product that comes from heavy concentrations of organic broccoli that can block the bad estrogens, keep the good estrogens there, and get those out of the body to lower the BPH symptoms. That's all I got for you today on this particular subject. Next, we're going to be moving on to the fitness portion of our show. Thank you very much. Hi, welcome to the fitness portion of our show. And today, as promised, we're going to be discussing the third chakra, which is right here, stems from the color yellow. When we're talking about the third chakra, we're talking about our will, our sense of power. When somebody says, boy, that hit me right in the gut, or I've got a gut feeling, it's your power center, your self-power center. And when you have a good, balanced energy, it's going to be a calm strength. You'll be confident. You won't worry too much about what other people say. You're going to have more laughter and more joy to you. Now, when you're out of balance on this one, materialistic, resentful, workaholic, violent, quick-tempered, depression, controlled by emotions. And it can go the opposite way. You can also end up being very weak, timid, and don't express your emotions and your feelings as well, too. So when that's out of balance, you don't feel so good. I'm going to show you 2 exercises that can help with that one. Let me set this down here. The first exercise is just an abdominal type of pull-in that we're going to do. And what you're going to do is you're going to bend over. You're going to support your back with your hands on your knees. And you see how straight my back is? What I'm going to do then is I look forward, and then I kind of arch my back, I hold it, and I pull my gut in at the same time, and then I release it. This particular motion can be used also for nausea in non-pregnant women. Because obviously if you're pregnant, you don't want to be sucking that part in. You want to pull it in and back down again. And you can do it in very rhythmical, or you can hold it there for 30 seconds and release it for 2 to 3 repetitions. The next exercise is called the boat. And the boat involves getting on the floor, and I'm going to show you a couple ways in which you can do this safely and not injure your back. Now, if you're strong like me and you've got good abs and you don't have any back issues, the standard boat is to put your legs out like this and hands and hold this position. Now, if you notice, I'm kind of shaky on here because obviously I'm not warmed up. But this is the proper way. Now, if you have back problems, I want your hands underneath your butt, and you put your leg down and you just hold it up like this, and you're supporting and you're stabilizing your back. Looking straight ahead and just breathing into the motion as much as you can. Okay, you can also do this if you have a problem. Just put it like this if you're even more challenged, and then reverse it and bring it back up again. Practice those exercises, and then we'll move on to 4th chakra next week. Thank you very much, and we'll be moving on to the research portion of our show. Hi, welcome to the research portion of our show, and with us today, as always, Ralph Turchiano. Ralph?
And thank you for the intro. Let's start our first segment off with a little bit of ways to save yourself some money and possibly avoiding that necessary trip to the medical established room, so to say. Well, the first study comes out as this. Study reveals that 2/3 of prostate cancer patients do not need treatment. How did they discover this? Very simple. Something much better than PSA is out there, but you're probably not going to hear about it for quite some time until there's money in it. It's a protein called HSP27. It actually is what determines how aggressive prostate cancer is. Now, what they did, this is from the British Journal of Cancer, so not just some fly-by-night organization, but what they did is they looked at numerous, about 4,000 cases of prostate cancer to find out which ones were aggressive and which ones were not. And then they took the people that obviously did not succeed as well. Well, the pathologists looked for this protein, HSP27, and they discovered that in 60% of the prostate cancers that were out there, it was not aggressive. It required no treatment, no surgery, no drugs. It would have made no difference. Cancer, yes. A problem, no. All I recommended was simple monitoring. Well, that's the first part in regards to that, and that's something to look for too. So what I really encourage you to do, if you have prostate issues, pin your doctor down and get an HSP27 test, not some stupid antiquated PSA test or whatever you want to call it. After that, what we discovered too is people that are in comas and vegetative states can feel and ironically can learn. Now I'm kind of surprised it took all these years for them to find this out, but what they did was a simple Pavlovian test, and they discovered this is printed in the Journal of Nature of Neuroscience. What they did was real simple. They played a loud sound, and then they did a puff of air in the patient's eyes, the one that was in a coma or vegetative state. And they did this until they realized what was happening was when that sound went off and they did not do the puff of air, they still blinked or squinted, which showed that the people, even though we're in a vegetative state or coma, and we may have thought they were brain dead, there was still an ability to learn. Now, whether it be reflex, instinctive, or whatever it is, it showed it exists. What I find disturbing is it took this long to actually figure that part out. Now, green tea, still one of my favorite supplements. And this comes from the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry. What green tea did, which surprised the researchers, was actually cause new bone to grow, or new bone cell activity. How well? Well, there's a chemical in green tea called EGC. Sometimes you may see the whole thing EGCG. Well, they said, quote unquote, EGC boosted the activity of a key enzyme that promotes bone growth by up to 79%. Also, too, it significantly boosted levels of bone mineralization in the cells, which of course strengthens the bones. The scientists also showed that the high concentrations of ECG block the activity of a type of cell, what they call the osteoclast, that breaks down or weakens the bones. The green tea itself, ironically, as opposed to most prescription drugs, you remember the saying, the poison makes the dose, real popular these days, definitely beat a lot of the current things like Fosamax and aldenophosphate or biophosphonates or Avista or whatever, Boniva, whatever the flavor of the week is, because once you get sick off of one of them, they just take the same drug and make a new name for it. And another thing for saving you money, young adults may outgrow bipolar disorder. Real curious study, and this came out of the University of Missouri. What they discovered is they took people between the ages of 18 and 25 and followed them over a few years. They found out about half of them, by the age of 30, no longer had any bipolar disorder. And the reason being, according to their words, was basically the maturing of the prefrontal cortex of the brain around 25 years of age could biologically explain the developmentally limited aspect of bipolar disorder. Other researchers have found similar patterns in young adults also with drug and alcohol abuse. So the brain is still maturing. This is important because a lot of people are on bipolar medications they believe for the rest of their life. Now, I don't know how to go about testing the waters, going on, off medications, whatever it comes down to be, but bipolar disorder does not have to be a chronic condition for the rest of your life. Something to really look into. Now, I'm always a little bit against being overly sanitized, and there's certain reasons for this. I'm a big fan of naturally acquired immunity. There's some good and bad with that too. But the next one comes out of Vietnam. And the reason I'm talking about sanitation is this. The headline of the study is called Gut Worms May Protect Against House Dust Mite Allergies. The reason that's important, and keep in mind, the study was the largest double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical study that looked at hookworms and gut worms themselves. What they did is they took about 1,500 children between the ages of 6 and 17, and they gave them medications that would kill the gut or hookworms. And what they discovered was generally that in the children that took the medication to kill the worms, significantly increased the risk of having allergy skin test to house dust mites and cockroaches and things along those lines. And the researchers speculate because we have co-evolved with these parasites for long periods of times, and they actually become part of our physical body itself and help us modulate the immune system. Science sometimes has us convinced that we're a single-cell organism, that all we are is one unit, and we're not depending on other life forms for our existence. That's got to change and is changing slowly. So, since 80% of people have allergies to dust mites and cockroaches and things like that, they discovered that when the children had those issues, those allergies were virtually non-existent. Very interesting, and now it's coming out of Vietnam, actually. One of the first studies I've seen in a long time. And they said, quote unquote, and this is important, it is now vital that we see more funding being invested in this important area of research so that we may increase our understanding of the link between gut parasites and the developing of allergies from birth. And I say to that, good luck on that happening, because we're going to follow into our next article, which has to do with science, but nothing particular, but those who grant our grants for research in science. Headline of the article, coming out of the Washington Times, was simply this: porn surfing rampant at U.S. Science Foundation. They discovered that porn surfing at the National Science Foundation, which gives grants to scientists and researchers, has increased within sixfold within the past year. It got so bad, they went to go investigate grant fraud. They found out their investigators spent most of the time trying to figure out what the heck was going on with all the pornography at the National Science Foundation. For instance, they found one senior researcher, or I should say senior executive, out of a year, 1 year, 331 days looking at pornography on his government computer and chatting online with nude or partially clad women without being detected, the record shows. His justification for using taxpayer dollars for this was simply this. When finally caught, I have to read it because I don't want to make any of this up, the National Science Foundation official retired. He offered the explanations on a humanitarian defense, suggesting that he frequented the porn sites to provide a living to poor overseas women. Investigators put the cost of taxpayers of seniors officials porn surfing between $14,000 and $58,000. He explained that these young women are from poor countries and need to make money to help their parents, and this site helps them do this. National Science Foundation gets $6 billion a year. It has about 1,200 applicants. What they also found, give you a couple of more examples, that misconduct was rampant throughout the area as you go through the National Science Foundation. The waste was just phenomenal. One foundation employee paid an unspecified sum last year after investigators found that during a 3-week period in June 2008, the worker pursued hundreds of pornography websites for hours. He got a whole 10-day suspension. Another employee, in a different case, was caught with hundreds of pictures, videos, and even a PowerPoint slides containing pornography. Asked by an investigator whether he had completed any government work on a day when a significant amount of pornography was downloaded, the employer responded, I can't remember. Keep that in mind. This is your taxpayer dollars, and these foundations, they're virtually going unmonitored, and that's why we have a hard time sending grant money for good science. I'm going to cut to the last thing here. I'm going to skip one of our articles that came out of Canada. And basically what they discovered was simply this, that the people that were vaccinated against the swine flu, this is perplexing, vaccinated against the regular flu had double the chance of a swine flu, and they stopped the vaccination program for the regular flu program through most of the provinces in Canada. I got to cut it short there, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Thank you very much for joining the Fit and Healthy Show. Research for yourself. Thanks a lot.